Good afternoon once again, ladies and gentlemen. Well, it could be good morning actually as well. Depending on where you are, good day, I guess. And welcome to the seventh round of the second season of the Coleslaw Cup. Now, of course, we're here in Spain. It's the qualifying session once again, and we have a slightly diminished grid this week with only 16 drivers. That's partly probably because of the Christmas/festive season. A couple of drivers might be away for that reason, but also I think we've actually lost the McLaren team in recent weeks for various reasons. And you'll have noticed that last week, not only was I in that McLaren team and I wasn't in this commentary box, had a bit of a different week going last week. Of course, Imola, a track that I have a personal history with, shall we say, and really wanted to have an opportunity to try and have a win there. That didn't work out, but we had Will by himself in the commentary box last week, and I think he did a pretty good job. Hopefully everyone was alright with that. But this week we're swapping around. I've got 100% of the duties this week, sort of evening itself out, as he is away in the Netherlands, so hopefully he enjoys that, and he should be back for the next round. And back to usual with 50-50 duties in the commentary box. Now it looks like we've got VTEC here on intermediates, which is an interesting strategy. Of course, a driver who likes to start towards the back and likes to save some tyre sets as he gets incredibly sideways and finds the wall. I don't think he's out though. No, he should be fine to continue. So it's entirely feasible that he'll set a lap time on them and intentionally start last, as we see the right front end plate is lost on the Haas. We also got Scavney doing his usual thing on mediums to start the session. He likes to choose balanced, it seems, in these recent sessions we've had since that patch. Made that an option. And we've got Ferrari in Ryan Rods here, getting sideways actually, and out of the way, thankfully, of that Mercedes. Ferrari have won the last 3 races of this series. No, I'm mistaken completely. Ferrari won 3 of the last 4 races. Ryan Rods, of course, winning rounds 3 and 4. Scornsey winning last week in round 6, but it was Lanzi for Alpine who won, beg your pardon, in, I think it was round 6 at Portugal, yes. So, light work there. Of course, the other race winner, having won the opening 2 rounds, had been the championship leader early on, but I believe, if we have a quick look at the standings now, that has moved over to Ryan Rods, having finished 4th, first, second, and second in the last 5 rounds. Didn't actually start in Bahrain, so what might have been had he attended all 6 rounds in terms of a championship gap at the top. It's only 10 points over the Aston Martin there of Lightwork, who finally emerges from the pits for the first time. We'll jump on with Lanzi as Edgar goes to the top for the moment. I think Edgar's only had 1 race with us so far, although I could be mistaken on that. So it's Scornsey and Lanzi 3rd and 4th in the championship, reasonably close behind the top 2 as well. Dace also in the top 5, but there's a bit of a gap back to him. Then it's A-Dub, Sharia, Dusty, Easy Rider, Yowie, and Forward closing out the top 10. But yeah, after Sharia there's a bit of a gap as well. So, big championship points up the top, starting to diminish as you go down that though. So, let's talk about the track, I guess. We're in Catalonia, Barcelona, alternate names. Of course, the Spanish Grand Prix has been here for many a year, even before Valencia Street Circuit was around. That was the European Grand Prix when it was around. However, it didn't last too long, despite being a fundamentally better and more enjoyable track. But you know, it was a street circuit, not permanent like this one. We've seen a couple of changes made to the track over the years though. Namely, the corner we're sweeping through right now used to be much tighter, and this used to be a little bit of a chicane, although there was no braking required. And talking of chicanes, we now go hard right here instead of following the track around a curve there, and take this chicane, which many drivers don't really like, and I believe might be removed in the coming the near future. So excited about that. Anyway, into the pits comes Lanza, who's currently on pole by a slim margin over Dace. Scornsey has some traffic to negotiate here, but I think he's probably on an in-lap anyway. Yes, he is. So all of the top 9 now in the pits. Callie Robb sitting a lowly 10th for his abilities, shall we say. I believe he'll be much higher by the end of the session. Nicky popping himself there into the back end of the top 10. Good effort by him. And now we're waiting on 3 drivers to set laps. I imagine light work will be very competitive here. Of course, as we mentioned, second in the championship. Purple second sector there as well. Pink helmet as well, adorning the head of the man who's coming through the final sector now. Only he and VTEC get to set times. Flat out towards the end of the lap. DRS is open and finds the front row by 0.03 of a second over Dace. So fine margins up the top. We'll expect to see some improvements on the second run from several of these drivers, namely the Ferrari duo, who I believe have the pace to find the front row themselves. A-Dub has been looking pretty good in practice, I'd say. Currently P6. There's a bit of traffic to negotiate here. But I believe they're both on outlaps, so nothing unfair or undue about that. Let's find someone who's on a lap. Kelly Robb might be about to start one. Although he's not got a full charge, so this will be his second lap on the same set of tyres. I think he did a charging lap in between, so plenty of fuel on board the Alfa Romeo, you would assume. And low revs, not really using the full extent of the accelerator, so this probably isn't a lap. Might be a second charge lap, which is not something I've seen too many times. Yeah, he's a second down through the first sector. Valid time here for VTEC. Seems like a transitionary period here, while everyone sorts themselves out, gets around for their second attempt. We'll stay with A-Dub this time, giving himself a nice gap to the car that also was on its outlap in front of him. Long run here down to turn 1. One of the longest here from the grid to the first turn of the season. I think Mexico might be the only one that's longer. Tiny bit wide of the apex there for the Mercedes man. Does he take turn 3 flat? Should be in qualifying. Easily flat. Sector 1 split comes up fast. He's 2,000ths up on his own time. Not the best time of the session though. Second and third sector is where you find a lot more though. So that's not too much of an indication as to whether he'll be finding any positions here. Through this chicane. Always easy to lose the rear there. Holds it quite nicely. And flat through Campson, not quite. Wide of the apex, that'll hurt him all the way down here to this sweeping left. And again, within thousandths of his own time. Heading up the hill. Used to be easy to lose the rear there, but with the changing profile of the track, not too much of an issue anymore. And flying down here into the chicane, there's yellow flags for a Ferrari. And last corner now. A-Dub to cross the line goes 12,000ths faster. Interesting lap there, so close to his previous best. The consistency is definitely there. Just the pace, albeit only 4/10 off currently provisional pole, not quite there. So we shall move on to Scornsey, let's say, who's now in the last sector. I believe this is the Ferrari that did not cause the yellow. He seems to be well on it here. Really nicely apexed through the last couple of corners there. And across the line. This goes straight to pole with Scornsey backing up last week's effort, which was actually only 9th in qualifying, but a one-stop, a masterful strategy in the wet to dry conditions, taking him all the way to the front for his first win of the season. And it should be mentioned, he becomes the first driver in Coleslaw Cup history to win 4 races in total over the 2 seasons. Many drivers locked on 3, including yours truly, including Jonathan Dunk, who's actually left the league recently, including light work, I want to say, and one more. Let me briefly look into that. So it's Scornsy with 4, myself with 3, A-Dub with 1, Dace with 2, Lightwork with 3, Jonathan Dunk also with 3, and Ryan Rods with 2, Lansy with 2. So I believe that's 8 individuals winning over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 20 races. A reasonable spread there. And of course doesn't include any sprints. Let's have a quick look at the Constructors' Championship. I'll put ourselves on board here with Lightwork since he's on a lap. No surprises. Currently it's Ferrari with the ascendancy there, having won half the races. It's Aston Martin in second with Nicky backing up Lightwork there. Alpine are the only other team over the 100 point threshold. And then it's Williams, Red Bull, Mercedes, Haas, AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo, and the very unlucky and very not present for this race, McLaren. So back to the action here. We're on board with the Aston Martin, opens the DRS for the only other DRS opportunity on the lap other than the main straight. He finds 2/10 so far this lap. It's a purple middle sector and looking quite good to go to the top if he can maintain this pace with the last sector, even if he can just stay with the same lap time he had in his previous attempt in this sector. Could be a provisional pole lap. Ooh, he does hit the curb. I'm not sure if that's ideal. It may be his preferred line. Either way, through the last corner now, opens the DRS again, and I think lost time with those curb strikes. Yeah, finds the front row though, so an improvement in that regard. Edgar had also moved up in his last attempt to the second row, currently on an out lap. Ryan Rods is almost half second up in just the first sector here. You would definitely expect him to be finding that sort of time throughout the whole lap. Not sure if that's why he's so far down the order, just because of a poor first sector on his previous run. Either way, onto the back straight, blasting down towards the second sector split, finds an extra 10th, and he's looking very good to take over provisional pole. This is where we were about a minute ago. They were talking about light work, and he lost it in the last sector, I think in the chicane. Let's see what line the Ferrari takes. Ooh, not quite as much curb in the first, definitely missed the curb in the second part. So I think that should be pole. And it is, finds even more time though. So breaks into the 16s by 0.03 of a second. It's a Ferrari front row lockout currently. And looking very strong there for Ryan Rods. Knuckles appears to be on a lap as well. Ferrari power in the back of this Alfa Romeo. Does he have any time to find across the second sector split? No, absolutely not. Sharia though has exactly hit an 18.0. The flattest of 18s. Is currently just inside the top 10. A-Dub starts a lap. A-Dub finishes a lap, I should say, and is competitively within that top 6, agonisingly close to Edgar's time, who appears to have had an issue there. We'll move on quickly from that. Is an out lap. Here comes Scornsy across the line. Oh, heartbreakingly close to not only a 16 but pole. Was right there. That is a gap of, what is that, 12 thousandths of a second. Yeah, 12 thousandths of a second. Fine margins in that Ferrari team. And Scornsy is on the wrong side of it at the moment, unfortunately for him. Here is Tweezer. Fractions of a second down on his own time through the first sector. Possibly a bit of latency there from either myself or the good man himself. Opens the DRS, blasts towards the second sector split, and is up marginally. It won't be enough to lift him off the 16th place unless he finds much further time in this final sector. Of course, that's definitely possible. Haven't seen what his previous efforts entailed. Looks tiny bit deep into that chicane, and that will lose him time throughout this final complex and all the way to the finish line. Oh, and even worse than that, he's invalidated. Actually found a lot of time. That would have been enough to go 14th as well. So there is time in the bag, but I don't think there's time left in the session, unfortunately, for the Red Bull man, who is replacing Easy Rider Yoey this evening, I believe. Smith Pell, 13th. Unlucky for some, and unlucky for him as well, as he pirouettes it there through turn 3. One of the more difficult corners on the track. Other Red Bull is not finding time here. Sharia maybe setting up for a final crack here. We'll see if he enters the pits. He does. There won't be time for him anymore, I don't think. Both Ferraris also no longer have time to set a lap and have retired, as has Nicky, Sharia and VTEC. VTEC this week though, having set a lap, will be eligible for the hardest charger, the driver of the day point, which he would have had last week had he set a time in Imola. Dace here looking to fly through turn 9. Is he flat? I think he had a tiny feather there. Close enough. Does he have any gains here? Yes, he does. A 10th of gains could see him up as high as 4th place, I believe. Depending on if he can nail this final sector. Looks good. Where's the turn-in point? Finds it quite nicely. 3rd gear for the chicane. Some will take it in 1st, some 2nd, some 3rd. And the final corner here opens the DRS, should be 4th, is 4th. Has a bit of a gap behind him as well. Let's see what Lanzy's up to. He's not found time on his own personal best so far, but is flat through turn 9. Sector split will be telling here. And he's lost some time. We'll move on. Lightwork was one of the last to start his lap, and that could be very helpful if track evolution is on his side. Chucks the Aston Martin in there. Has a good split so far. Looks like he'll be challenging at least Dace here. What can he do in the middle sector? Super close with track limits there. Exactly what you need to do in qualifying, especially on a final run when you're already close to your maximum. Bit of a lift there through turn 9, but it's fine. Depends on your wings whether that's the correct decision or not. 77 thousandths up. This could be right in the Dace ballpark, or right behind, depending on this final sector. Aston Martin has just a few corners left. That looked pretty nice, although he did lose the rear on the exit. Settles alright for the chicane though. Doesn't smash over the curbs like earlier in the session. This should be an improvement, I think, to at least 4th, possibly 3rd. Wow, even better. Finds so much time in the last sector. It's purple. It is a 16.926. More than half a tenth there on Ryan Rods. It's pole position for light work, and no one else has time to beat it. Fantastic effort there. One of 2 drivers to find 16s in that session. Scornsey was very close. Lanzy is also on the 2nd row of the grid. So the last 2 winners of Grand Prix are on the 2nd row, and all 4 winners of Grand Prix this season are in the top 4 positions. Dace on the outside of that looking in. Then it's Edgar, A-Dub, Scavney in the top 8, and I'll have to take another look at that list to recall exactly what was at the end of the top 10 there. Have a quick look at the chat. Yeah, Tweezer upset with himself, having been up by 1.2 seconds and then invalidating in the last turn. I think we saw that. Lanzy apparently with a bottle job there. And back to the order here. Again, it's Lightwork and Ryan Rods on the front row. Scornsey, Lanzy, fellow race winners in the top 4. Dace, Edgar, Adub, Scavney, Dusty, Calirob in the top 10. A bit lower than we probably expected a couple of those guys. Sharir just outside the top 10. Smith Pell, Nicky, Knuckles, VTech and Tweezer rounding out the grid. Very close there also between 14th and 15th, which I hadn't noticed up until right now. A second covered the top 11, which is reasonable, especially given we didn't have a full grid. So an exciting race in prospect here. It will be 33 laps. That's a lot of time for tyre issues, and there's a connection issue unfortunately for Calirob. I hope he can rejoin by the time the cars take to the grid. Of course there'll be a formation lap, which is a bit of time to reconnect, and of course it's the responsibility of drivers to leave a bit of time before readying up on the grid. So he does have time to re-establish a connection. Indeed, there he is. Usually we do predictions around now, if we had two of us in the commentary box. So I'll ask myself the question, Jacko, who do you think will win this race? And boy, is it a hard choice. You've got, as I mentioned, the 4 race winners starting in the top 4 on the grid here. They are all absolutely wonderful drivers, and on their day any of them could win the race. But I think you've got to go for ones that have displayed qualifying prowess. There was no obvious higher wings on any of them in that session. In fact, I didn't see the pulsator flat through Campsa, which is usually an indication of wings that may be a bit high for keeping cars behind you and for making overtakes on the long straight. So Lightwork does look strong in that regard, and it has been a number of rounds since he's won. He's had quite a bit of misfortune in recent weeks, so I think I'll go with Lightwork this week. From pole position, I know it's an easy bet, but when you have drivers such as Scornsy, such as Ryan in the wings, it's never an easy bet to go against them. And even men such as Landsy and Dace, well established in the league, having won 2 races each over the past 2 seasons, you know, it's very difficult to rule either of them out either. Alright, now we're seeing some tyres change colour in the pits here, which I haven't quite worked out what that's an indication of yet. But Smith Pell had softs in his pit box only a minute ago. Now we see the white walled hards on the number 53. Well, not on the number 53, but in his garage. So we'll keep an eye on that. Hards also visible in Tweezer's pit. I don't think it's possible to see in anyone else's. Although A-Dubs is close, I think the tyres are resting on the inside of that garage section we can't quite see. As the countdown begins, no extra messages in the D1 chat since Calirob game crashed. He's back in. Good luck to everyone indeed, Tweezer. And good luck from me, the commentator, who definitely won't curse anyone. And that's definitely not a real thing. Alright, seconds until the formation lap begins. The grid walks are over. The teams are off the racing surface. And here we go. Let's bring up the correct data for this session. Okay, so let's have a look at the tyres. And it's 14 of the 16 drivers all on mediums, which is pretty standard, you'd have to say. A-Dub with the attacking strategy on softs out of P7, and VTech with his usual hard strategy from P15. Nothing too out of the ordinary there, I would imagine, other than the fact that you'd usually see more people trying to offset themselves, particularly if they're not right up the front. Yeah, this is, I think, makes a lot of sense. You see some predicted strategies there. The one stop is always going to be preferable. If there's a safety car, it could really work out for A-Dub. It could really hinder VTEC. Obviously, if it's a late safety car and VTEC's still out there, it could be wonderful for the Haasman. So it's all about hedging your bets. Mediums are the safest in that regard. If you're a championship contender, taking mediums is always a good idea. If you're just after a race win or a podium out of nowhere, do something different, and that certainly makes sense there for VTEC. Known for liking to start at the back with hards, that is his thing, and he sometimes does pop it up there on the podium when you least expect it. Alright, so very pink helmet there. Very, very pink helmet there for light work. Anyway, we're about to see 33 laps of this Barcelona circuit. 2 Ferraris going to charge down this Aston Martin, or is he going to stay out front? Will Lanzi have something to say about that? I think we'll start on board with Lanzi. We don't want to get a terrible camera angle, which is definitely possible here. Maybe we'll give the external angle a chance, but if it doesn't show us anything interesting by the time we get towards turn 1, we'll swap over. Lots of disqualifications. Just unable to park there for 3 members of the top 5. And indeed, only odd numbers on the grid having trouble parking so far. Interesting. Anyway, here we go, the lights are on. It's 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's go, go, go. And the camera angle is not really being too forthcoming. Terrible start for the pole sitter. He's lost 3 positions immediately, and that's a collision. He's out of the race. Lanzi has made contact with him. There's further contact at turn 1, but that's huge. That is absolutely huge. Tweezer with a 5-second penalty as well for contact with Smith-Pell. The Ferraris had jumped light work well before there was this contact. Ryan Rodds leads the race. I think that is going to be a virtual safety car. Yeah, I don't see the yellow dot for the safety car, so virtual safety car it is, despite a massive cleanup there. And Lightworks race and prospect for points over before he even reached the first braking zone. Huge disappointment there. Of course, he did score a point for pole, but that's not nearly enough to ward off the challenge of his rivals. By the end of the race, you'll see him tumbling down the championship order, which is terrible for him. I really need to see that again to make any call on who was to blame, but it does remind me of a collision that I actually had with Lanzi a few months ago in Hungary. So I hope that that's not a similar situation, and yeah, it's very difficult to tell. Either way, Lanzi has tumbled down the order himself. I can't tell if there's damage on board the Alpine, but he would have been third. He'd start fourth, as it goes green, by the way. We'll see if he pits here. He's now 10th. Stays out, so probably without damage. Ada looking to work around Dusty Lusky here, and I think Dusty has made some positions. Let's just check that. Indeed he has. Dusty has made 4 positions, the most of anyone so far. Hansi, of course, down 6 and 15 lost. The maximum you can lose in a lobby with 16 people for the retired Aston Martin there of light work. And here comes A-Dub. Makes it up the inside there. Oh, was there a yellow flag? Yeah. Further pain for Aston Martin. Nicky has gone round at turn 3. So A-Dub making some headway here. Makes it into the top 5. He's up 2 positions. Dace up 3 positions, which is now equal most with Sharia and Smith and Dusty. Correct that. Tweeter is up 4 places. He's gone from last to 12th. So a great start there from the Red Bull man. We've got Ellie in chat. Probably Mother Ellie, who we see on Twitch, supporting Scornsy. Welcome. How are you going today? Yeah, Scornsy is doing a great job. He has lost out to Dace here, but he's still in a great shout of the podium here, and you can never count out Scornsy. until right at the end probably. But yes, Dace has made a position here, and interesting that Dace is actually on pace for once. I think we had to move somewhere there, I couldn't quite tell. Edgar's looking good here as well in the top 4, holding on to the back of Scornsy. In fact, Dace is not holding on to the back of Ryan Rods. There is a 1.3 second gap there, which is not enough to see the rear wing open with DRS come the end of this lap. Actually, coming the middle of this lap, we should see Scornsy having this open just after Campster here. The detection is after this chicane. Right here, in fact. Definitely within 1 second. And we'll have a quick look back at his rear wing. There it is, open. First rear wing open of the race. He's definitely not close enough at the moment to make a move, but does find about a tenth there on that straight. The much longer straight on the way to turn 1 is a better overtaking opportunity, I would say. So we'll keep an eye out for that. He may be looking to make the move here, depending on the run he gets out of the chicane, which is so key. As we see further issues for Nicky, just a terrible day for the Aston Martin team. Started the race second in the Constructors' Championship standings, as Ferrari taking turns with the fastest lap there. Dace actually managed to pull himself back within DRS. I don't think he actually got the detection point there to get it on that straight, but he's now within it for the next time they get to a detection point, which will be after turn 8, and he might be deploying to make that happen. Yeah, I think he has. He's way down there with 30% at the moment. Can he hold it within this 1 second barrier? Well, not quite. It is hovering around the mark. He's desperately clamouring to stay within, I'd say, and only needs to be that close for another couple of corners, but it's so close. So close. Needs to nail this chicane. Oh, there's 1.000, no way. He's going to be out by the slimmest of margins, and they'll put him under massive pressure here. Let's take a look backwards. Yeah, the wing is not open on the Williams. I am good, thanks, Ellie, and good to hear that you are too. Yeah, it looks like your man is definitely on it here. He may have lost the position early to Dace, but I think he'll be getting it back fairly soon. He's got much more in the way of battery, and is super close here coming out of the chicane, although great traction for Dace. So he's sorted that out at least, and that's quite an important thing to have on your side, the traction out of the chicane. Deployment here for Scornsy. Will there be a defensive move from the car in front? Slightly, but it wasn't really required, and Scornsy has to wait for another lap. Once again, there is Dace finding a couple of tenths of a second there on Ryan Rod, so might that indicate that Ryan's running a bit more wing than these guys? That is possible. Could be detrimental by the end of the race. You never know what's going to happen with the tyre wear as well. Let's have a look at the battery consumption. Not much at all for the race leader. He's looking very strong. Dace, not so much. He's just trying to stay in contact. And he will now, because there was a slight error there from Ryan. Got very sideways there. Caught it, which is a great thing, of course, but lost time. And that's going to help Dace in his defensive efforts here. Not needing to use the battery to defend now, he can use the rear wing. Scornsy and Edgar in close proximity as well. A-Dub is outside of DRS, and he's got Dusty for company. There was a brief yellow flag there. I think that might have been Smith Pell, but that's only a theory. I think he lost a position and is already 1.3 back, so that would suggest maybe he got a bit sideways. Hard to tell. And my pronunciation of Spanish corner names isn't great, so I'm not going to attempt that one. Lanzi, he's 4.3 back from Sharia. This is not the ideal start whatsoever. Obviously after that contact right about here on the opening run to turn 1. Might he have damage? I think it seems likely to me. Bit of a battle here behind Calais Rob, and VTEC makes the move on Tweezer, who had been up 4 positions at one point, now only up 2 positions. 3 drivers sharing the hardest charger so far, although I believe it only goes to the one that's highest by the end of the race, so Dace currently sitting with that. Well, that is far too early to call that at this moment. Once again, down at 20% on his battery, which is something he needs to work on. Otherwise, he will be dead meat. Look at this. almost complementary amounts in the battery for the top two, making up a full battery, but not 50-50 whatsoever. Scornsy closer to 50%, but on the right side of 50%. See what Edgar's up to. He's got a bit more, just chilling in behind. Often a good move to save battery, tyres and everything, and just stay with the leaders. If they make a mistake, you're there to pounce, but not, wearing your tyres too much, trying to make moves. And it's very difficult to make moves when the cars in front have DRS, which is where the term DRS train comes from. The cars, particularly third and back in a train, just find it so hard to make moves, particularly on these straights that aren't super long like, say, a Baku or a Shanghai. Alfa Romeo teammates swapping positions there. Kalle overtaking Knuckles. Kalle with not the strongest race we've seen from him. He was on the podium in his Coleslaw Cup debut last week, so I believe he's still a reserve, although I might be wrong on that. Very strong driver historically when I've raced him in the past, and I would expect him to probably gap that pack and maybe close in on the Smith-Pell battle in front. Lanzi is still dropping off the back of Sharia, so my guess is for sure that Lanzi has some damage and he's trying to wait to a reasonable pit window or even a safety car to have that fixed. Either that or it's floor damage, which cannot be fixed in pit stops, which is obviously terrible and going to be a huge detriment to his race as it goes forth. Now let's see, it's the fastest lap for Ryan Rods. He didn't dump the battery either. Dace does not have DRS, which is key. Scornsy menacing in the background. If you can imagine Jaws music playing there as he approaches from behind. Dustin makes a move on A-Dub. That will have been a DRS move. This battle for P5 is falling back from the lead 4. They've got Scavney and Shreya for company. So 2 packs of 4 in the top 8. Then you've got a duo in 9th and 10th. Kalle Rob's sort of developing into his own pack there. Then Vitek and Knuckles still together in 12th and 13th. So he's falling off the back of that. Actually has a penalty, which I didn't notice earlier. And Nicky is super far back. In fact, only a few corners away from being lapped. Really has to hope for a safety car and fortunes to change very soon in order to salvage his race. Currently 15th and last of the runners. Scornsy is watching Dace there, not within DRS of his Ferrari teammate. Might be an opportunity here for P3 to become P2, although the gap 6/10, maybe just a little bit more than it needed to be for the move to be on. Oh, I stand corrected. Here he comes. This could be an excellent move. Sweeping around the outside, give space to Dace. They give space to each other. And Dace has a nice line through turn 3 though. But this could switch back. Oh, lost it in the background for Edgar. We'll switch back here because there's action still happening around the outside now. This would be a fantastic move if we can pull it off. Gets a little bit squeezed, but now it becomes the inside. Although traction will favour the Williams on the outside. And if Dace has anything to deploy, he doesn't really. Yeah, Dace stays in front, but the pressure is certainly on him. Definitely not going to get within DRS of the car in front now to get the defensive deployment of the rear wing. This is all letting Ryan escape. They didn't lose as much time as I expected them to in that little sequence there. Dace doing a great job of defending. Both of them doing a fantastic job of leaving space for the other. Sharia's now made moves. Edgar fell back from that lead pack all the way to 8th place. In fact, he's under pressure now from Lanzi and Smith-Pell. A-Dub has fallen back in that time. I believe that'll be because he's on the soft tyre, which we noticed at the start. One of 2 drivers not on mediums. So everything really to be expected here. Dusty now promoted to 4th, Scavney 5th, Sharia 6th, and into the pits. First pit stop of the race is A-Dub. Makes a lot of sense as Scornsy, an uncharacteristic mistake there, but a wonderful save, preserving his chances at a podium here. Falls outside DRS, but I imagine he'll have a chance at recuperating that gap in the coming laps. Can't overstate how difficult it is to save moments like that, because he was very sideways. So incredible skill there by the number 69 to retrieve his car from the brink of, well, complete loss of adhesion to the track. I think that might have been curb related actually. Dusty looking pretty good here. I think that was further yellow once again for the Aston Martin team. Nicky having a absolutely horrid day, but clearly not as bad as his teammate, who no longer has 4 wheels attached to his wagon. Scavney keeping in close contact here with Dusty. Dusty taking to the widest part of that corner. Shreya just looking on. Not sure if he necessarily has the pace to challenge these guys, but he's staying within the DRS, which is so helpful for your lap time and for your battery charge. Lanzi has recovered some positions. He's currently running 7th after that horrific start to the race involving he and Lightwork as he enters the pits. This is early for a medium runner, but let's see if he changes the wing. That might be a reasonable explanation for this relatively early pit stop off the yellow walled tyre. And there is indeed a new nose cone for the Alpine. Makes sense. You want to try and not make an extra pit stop. He only lost about, I want to say, 5 seconds that stint because of that damage. Hopefully for him that's all the damage repaired and he doesn't have any floor, underbody or side pod, diffuser, rear wing damage, the sort of stuff you can't fix. He emerges in 14th place. Adab emerged in 12th. I'm not entirely sure if he was behind Tweezer. Either way, he's 4 seconds ahead now. Has Knuckles just ahead of him. Up the front, Scornsy has found that DRS zone there of Dace once again. So his mistake, while costing him a few laps opportunity to making a pass, doesn't seem to have cost him an opportunity to have a battle for second in the long run. Dace has actually closed back towards Ryan Rods as he continues pushing. So Dace is doing a fantastic job. Probably the best showing we've seen from him all season. He's had 1 podium thus far. That was in drumroll, China in round 4 when he came second. So this would be equaling his result if he can manage a second place, as Smith Pell has issues here. Not sure what caused that. He was involved in the battle at one point, so there may have been contact, or it may have been by himself. Knuckles gets it slow down for the pit lane. Comes in from 11th place it was. Adab just about went past in the meantime. Adab, of course, closing in on his teammate here, who you'd hope wouldn't hold him up too much, particularly with heated tyres that are much older than the hards adorned by Adab. Number 51 rapidly approaching number 53 here. Sharir up there in 6th place has lost the DRS gap to Scavney, who still has it to Dusty ahead of him. Dusty the highest placed Honda engine car so far. Got Ferrari, Mercedes, Ferrari in the top 3 in terms of power. Scornsy now laying down the gauntlet with the fastest lap. Brings him within half a second of Dace there. It's triple purple in terms of sectors, and he's definitely recovered any loss of confidence he may have had through that turn 1-2 sequence there. Knowing him, he probably wouldn't have lost much confidence anyway, as Smith Pell has further issues there in the 3rd sector. Loses out to Tweezer, who's now up 5 positions. VTEC up 6. Sharia also up 5 by the end of the race. Now, let's see. They've been on these tyres for 12.5 laps. What will the leaders do here? Is it time to go in for hards? I think these will go maybe 18, 19 laps should they wish, but what's the point of going just over halfway when you need to put on the hards anyway? You're not going to get to the soft, I wouldn't think, unless you're an absolute tyre wear god, such as Scavney. So maybe around the right time to go to hards, although an overcut could be quite powerful in this scenario for someone like Scornsy, who's finding it difficult to make an overtake here. Dace might have, I don't know, slightly lower wings. Something seems in Dace's favour, at least on the straights, particularly in traction actually. So we might have to understand what that is at some point. If these guys make the interviews, we'll ask about the straight line speed and traction for sure. Ellie with confidence in Scornsy, and it's not misplaced. This guy is very good at making passes. There's no rush, of course. He's got plenty of time to make the move. 20 laps remaining at the start of this one, as we see further pit stops down there for Edgar and Kelly Robb. Both of them with Ferrari power plants. Tweezer also joins them in the pits. Edgar had been running strongly, if you remember, in the top 4 earlier in the race, but unfortunately had a bit of a pirouette by himself in turn 3. Just lost the rear there, so I don't know if that was tyre heat. It seems to me that that might be a possible reason why that spin may have occurred. Either way, it's left the top 3 with air gap behind them. They have a bit of margin for error if they so need it. And there goes Dace. Okay, so first of the top 3 to blink is Dace. Now that's interesting because the top 2 now are both Ferrari, so they can't both pit next lap to cover him. And now I don't think Ryan necessarily needs to pit next lap to cover him because the hards aren't excellent in heating up, so the outlap shouldn't be faster than in-lap. So Scornsy should probably be the one to pit this lap, unless he thinks he can go much faster and do a larger overcut. So we'll see how that pans out. Probably expect one of them in this lap. Thanks very much, Ellie. Yes, I suppose. Yeah, some drivers have said that they do like my commentary. It's probably a bit more information driven than say a Crash McQueen, who's a bit more entertainment driven, which is it's interesting just the differences you have there. And certainly some drivers prefer me in the commentary box than on the track. Let's put it that way. Anyway, it's time to see the Ferraris come past the pit lane entry. Do either of them peel off here? The answer is yes. Ryan Rhodes enters the pits. Now, I don't know if Scornsy wanted to pit there, but definitely when you see a teammate pit a few seconds in front of you, you don't follow them, unless of course it's a safety car or in a change of condition. So he did not have the option there to do so. Scavney continues. We know he's an absolute tyre wear god, so maybe, just maybe, he's trying to get to softs at the end. I wouldn't bet everything on it though. Out comes Ryan, and he should be coming out quite safely here in 3rd place. Of course, probably still the net lead. Where is Dace? Dace is 4 seconds back, so that has increased massively. But look for Dace to close that down in this 1st and 2nd sector here as Ryan's tyres come up to temperature. Alright, I think I saw yellow flags briefly there, but I did not catch where it was, so it must have been brief. Possibly lapped Nicky, letting people through. Let's see where he is. Yeah, he's got that Red Bull in front of him. Oh no, that's Tweezer. So are these gentlemen lapped? I don't think they are quite lapped. Yeah, Scornsy is sort of... Yeah, he's right in frame in the background there. So they are close to lapped. And Nicky will likely be lapped very soon as he enters the pits. Let's see, Scornsy follows him in. So not quite lapped, but I mean, maybe on the outlap. I think Scornsy's going to make an overcut work here. 2 laps later than Dace. Dace is 2.5 back from Ryan. Oh, this is going to be so close. Scornsy's going to come out between them, I think, but he's going to be under massive pressure as his tyres are going to be cold. Dace is up to temperature and he's absolutely flying at this point. He's absolutely using the ERS as well for that purpose. There's the Ferrari. You can see how close it's going to be. Not the optimal line for Scornsy either into turn 1, as he has forced to stay within those white lines, as are the rules. And Dace with finding some... Wow, great move by Dace. Respectful from both of them to leave the exact right amount of space, and Scornsy has a little bit of a look there. Just makes Dace go a tiny bit wide, not the optimal line for the Williams. That'll be frustrating for Scornsy. If he could have held that for a couple more corners, that would have been quite nice. But now he's going to struggle to stay within DRS. He still needs to warm his tyres up a little bit more. Thankfully for him, there is a DRS section coming up right now, so he might gain a 10th back and if he can stay within the DRS range in this last sector, he'll be looking good. 2 laps fresher tyres by the end of the race will be very helpful for him. It's just a shame for him that he could not stay in front for this sort of middle part of the lap. Yeah, I have no doubt that he will get him, Ellie. The prospect, though, to catch Ryan is sort of eluding Scornsey the more laps it takes him to pass Dace, though. That's the only worry I have, and there's the fastest lap for Ryan Rodds as he extends the gap in front. Dace is 3.5 seconds behind now, so even if Scornsey can get past, it'll be quite the job to catch up to his teammate. We've seen stranger things happen, though. Ryan has shown a couple of chinks in his armour recently, made some errors in Portimao. I think we had two recent races there. We saw him lose it in turn 8, as he almost loses it in turn 4 this week. Crazy. Okay, let's not curse him any further. He also got a penalty on the last lap of Portimao last week in Midwest, which saw Scornsey win that race. Yeah, that's a good point. They are teammates indeed, Ellie. But, you know, everyone wants to win the race, and I think Scornsey will want to win the title as well. And knowing his teammate is currently leading that, might be a good reason to try and beat his teammate in each individual race. But, you know, I don't know how close they are, how much they mind either of them winning the title. Scornsey, of course, was second in last season's title. So he'll be looking to improve on that, I would imagine, not just draw with him his own personal best. They're talking. Okay, yeah, I kind of expected that, but you know, even if you're talking, you still want to beat them, right? You want to work with them for the Constructors' Championship, but individually, I would imagine both of them want to win. The gap, though, between second and third on track is coming down, so Ryan sort of regaining some confidence after that moment he had at that corner there last lap. He should be fine. Scavney still remains in the lead of the race. There's a spin at the last turn. I think that might be Lanzi. It is Lanzi. So one Alpine at the front of the field, albeit yet to make a pit stop, and the other one not having his finest hour here. Of course, winner 2 weeks ago in Portimao, and there goes the rear again. I think there's damage on board this car. I just can't believe that Lanzi's struggling this much without some form of damage. And with the force that he came together with light work and the wall indeed on lap 1, I think that is a reasonable assumption to make. Oh, look at this bit of wall that sort of dives down there. It's kind of interesting. Anyway, we'll leave him suffer there. Suffer in peace. Alright, Dace is still under massive pressure from Ellie's man Scornsey. Scornsey, also a very clean driver, doesn't send anything mental into these corners. You might see some dive bombs from less experienced drivers, or indeed just super aggressive drivers. He's not one of them. He's one of those guys who takes few risks, sometimes to his own detriment, which can let other drivers sort of put him under a bit of duress, and he wants to stay clean. Makes sense. It's a good way to be if you're a championship contender. But if you want second place, you're going to need to make a move on Dace here, who is super confident, apparently, in the straight line. He's got hardly any battery, so I'm not really sure how he's managing this. And then again, Scornsey's got less battery. Maybe Scornsey needs to save the battery and just dump it all in one go towards the end of the race. That might be the best shout here. It might be the best shout. Yes, Scornsey is smart. I've known... Ooh, 10-second penalty for Lanzi. Damn. Something has gone heavily wrong. A 5-second penalty. Don't retire, Lanzi. There are points. No. No, Lanzi. There are points for finishing the race. That could be critical by the end of the season. Yeah, as I was saying, I've known Scornsey under, I think, 2 or 3 different names over the years. Known him for like 6 years, I want to say, based on our first introduction in the league on F1 2016, and he's always been fast. but he's over the years just garnered more and more intelligence, and the way he drives is becoming more championship orientated and towards gathering all the points he can get. At the start it was win or bin, and while he won most races in those seasons, he didn't necessarily win the championships because he gave up some points just in silly ways. Like when he could have got 1 point out of a race, which isn't much for Scornsey, he just didn't finish, which kind of was helpful for me in one or two scenarios. But now he's sort of learnt from that, and he is really difficult to beat. Let's put it that way. Really, really difficult to beat. He needs to have like a lot of bad luck to be beaten. Or you need to be this guy, who is pretty much on the exact same pace. And as we say pace, sets the fastest lap. Ryan and Scornsey is probably one of the best teams we've seen in a long time in any league. And that will be difficult for anyone to beat. And here comes Scornsey. Finally makes the move work. Dace is right there. Ooh. No, I thought there was a bit of loss of traction there for Scornsey. Let's see what's happening here. The batteries are pretty much equal. They're both flashing, I would imagine. Can't see Dace's, but with 6%, 8%, he will be flashing as well. Can he stay close enough to have a go back? I'm going to say I don't think he can. I think he stayed there based on just being difficult to pass, but I think Scornsey was actually quicker that whole time. Maybe just by a couple of tenths, but that's all you really need. .7 seconds in front though. Yeah, I think the race might be over for the lead unless there's a safety car or a penalty to Ryan Rods. Could be interesting. So Dace will probably get DRS here on the main straight. Let's see how close he gets. Because if the theory about his wings being lower and therefore downforce and drag being better for straight line speed than Scornsey, he may have an opportunity here, although I kind of doubt it, at 6/10. Another fastest lap there for Ryan Rods, who's really pushing on at this point. Defensive line there to break the toe from Scornsey. Dace doesn't take the bait, doesn't really need to, doesn't close up either. So theoretically, it's going to be just as difficult for Dace to pass Scornsey as it was for Scornsey to pass Dace. And that bodes well, I'd say, for the Ferrari man, who's now, of course, up one position, as is his teammate, having both of them outlasted the unfortunate light work. Two members of the top four in the standings and the grid for this race out, Lanzi and Lightwork. They did both collide on the run to turn 1, but Lanzi did last many laps more than the Aston Martin man. Unfortunate for both of them, but it gives a massive opportunity to their rivals, and their rivals are 1 and 2. Dace may indeed close in as well, championship-wise. And one thing I should mention is Scavney has performed a sizable overcut. It's come out in 4th. He had been battling Dusty, so he has eclipsed Dusty in that regard, and he's on softs. Will they last? I know he took the mediums longer than anyone else, but Scavney has to go quite the distance here on softs. Let's have a look exactly how long that will be. Okay, so he's coming to the end of his second lap on this compound. We'll see that tick over right now. And there are 10 laps remaining for him. So he requires a 12 lap stint. Now my notes say that you can get 10 out of these, and with Scavney being known for his excellent tyre wear, I believe he can do that. It'll just be a case of, will they be fast enough to hold up any charges behind him? Although you'd imagine he'd extend that gap behind him over the next couple of laps and make that pressure less and less. Tweez are suffering with penalties. We'll have a quick look at the penalties. Here they are. 6 seconds for Tweezer, 3 for Nicky. Yeah, that probably won't affect them too badly. Although, hang on a second. Yeah, okay. So that is the interval between the drivers, so neither of them will be affected by that as it currently stands. However, if there's a safety car, they'll both find it very difficult to elevate themselves off the bottom two. Let's remove this. Okay, so that is a ghosted Nicky. Ah, yes, a lap down will be ghosting, and indeed, well out of the way anyway of Scavney. We'll get back to the front here as there is pressure on Scornsey. Dace got very close, but couldn't make it work. Good question, Ellie. We'll check for warnings here. We have a brief couple of corners where it seems unlikely that there will be an overtake. View lap times. It's a clean bill of health for Ryan Rods. We'll have a quick look at the rest of the top three as well. In fact, both Ferrari drivers keeping it perfectly clean. Dace with one warning, giving it about mid-race distance. Seems unlikely you're going to get too many penalties around this track. There's just not that many corners to cut. You can go wide somewhere like Campsa right there, turn 9. You can cut the chicane, of course, but usually that slows you down. So, oh, mistake from Scornsey. Oh no. That puts the pressure back on him to get back past. It took him so many laps to get past, and he managed it finally, only to make that such a small error. But when you have a guy that close, it's enough for them to get past. Must be so annoying inside Scornsey's helmet here, but he still has that opportunity to get back. He's got laps to make this happen. Ryan is absolutely cleared out in front. Yeah, damn indeed, Ellie. At least he didn't lose it completely. We've seen him sideways twice this race, I believe now. His teammate once as well. So they're clearly close to the limit of adhesion, pushing very hard. Which means, of course, Dace is doing a wonderful job himself of making this even slightly difficult for either of the Ferrari men. Scavney is sort of bridging the gap towards them, but he won't have time, or indeed the good enough degradation to challenge anyone in front of him unless there are further errors or penalties or safety cars. He does have the fastest lap though, which will give him a point, and probably to be expected as he's the only driver, I believe. Let's check that. Oh, well, where is the tyre? Yeah, only driver on softs. VTEC, of course, the only driver on mediums. Oh, sorry, Nicky's there as well, so Nicky must have made 2 stops. Yeah. Okay, so fastest lap is only 4/10 in Scavney's direction. So, I mean, Ryan could really slap him in the face here with maybe a late fastest lap. I think the soft doesn't necessarily get it here. The hard lasts so long, and even at the end of its stint, it's setting personal bests as no way. There was definitely yellow there, wasn't there? Okay, let's get the gaps up here. Yeah, that's dramatically dropped. So, just as I think the race is over at the front, Ryan has lost 3 seconds at least, possibly 3.5, 4 seconds in that first sector. So, he needs to just calm it down. He doesn't need to be pushing this hard. Bacon now in the chat. There's apparently some shenanigans going down in the stewards' reports. Oh, was that another sideways moment for Ryan Rods? He needs to reduce his tyre heat right now, because the gap is almost DRS range. Out of nowhere, this race has become not only a battle for second, but a 3-way battle for the win. Incredible stuff. In recent weeks, we have actually seen Ryan with slightly weaker tyre wear than, for example, Scornsey, who last week made a one-stop work in Imola to record his first win of the season. Despite both of them going to hards within 1 lap of each other, Ryan had to make a second stop in that race and only managed second place. So, potentially a chink in his armour there? Will that affect him in these last 6 laps? Either way, there's going to be DRS available for Dace, which is going to be annoying as hell for Scornsey, who finally did get past when there wasn't DRS for the Williams, but now there is. It'll be defensive DRS just as much as offensive, so that will be difficult to make a move work. Yeah, so back in the chat, referring to the stewards' reports, Lanzi and Lightwork are the ones having each other looked at there for obvious reasons. Bacon, you are the head steward, so maybe you can give us a sneak peek of what you think might happen there. Although, of course, maybe that's not a good idea. If you feel like it, if there's something really obvious, let us know. Otherwise, we'll keep that under wraps until we can have a proper look at it. Scornsy, I think, just at his personal best lap of the race. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, 20.0. It had been a 20.4, I believe. Or 20 point something that wasn't 0. Either way, the top 3 can be all seen within, let's say, a tarpaulin's distance of each other. Such a random analogy, but either way, I wasn't going to say blanket because I don't think that's quite close enough for one blanket to fit over all of them. Either way, I think Nicky had some further issues there. There was a bit of yellow flag action in the final sector. Yeah, Bacon saying he's only looked at it once, but it looks like they got locked together. Such an easy thing to have happen. I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often with all the jostling down towards the turn 1, all the various different turn 1s on the calendar. Seems like something that would happen more at Imola, for example, because of the sort of curved nature of the straight. Despite this one being a very straight, it is a long one, so places like here in Mexico can be quite dangerous prior to the braking zone, and we'll see it rear its head here, unfortunately, for Lansian light work. Yeah, Scorns are getting nowhere near Dace here, and that's because Dace has the rear wing open. So frustrating for these guys who are third and back in DRS trains. Of course, this seems to be the only DRS train currently. We'll have a quick look to see the other intervals. So AW is on the back of Dusty, and that might be the only other battle necessarily worth watching because all the other gaps are like 3 seconds and more, other than Shreya behind this, but Shreya is a bit further back than AW is. AW has quite a few more laps on these tyres though, which won't be helpful in this battle. One of the few drivers to drop it to first gear there, not even really a hairpin, but it does work for him. He's on full traction control, which does seem to be an influence on gear selection as well at certain corners. Oh, there's a break of DRS up front. Could be quite helpful for Scornsy. Yeah, we'll have a quick look at this. 8 tenths is going to be too much to bridge though, I would imagine, even with the rear wing open. Yeah, he does close up quite dramatically though. So there is still pressure on for second place here. I'll head back to AW now, who seems to have fallen back slightly from Dusty since we last were on board. I do think that full traction will limit you coming out of that chicane and therefore all the way down the straight, which is of course the best passing opportunity on the lap. So a bit of a hindrance there for the Mercedes man. Shreya still just watching on in the distance, hoping these two come together, make a slight error, get a penalty, anything like that. Would see him at least jumping one position into the top 6 or even top 5 if both of them have an issue. Yeah, back in only 16, there's no McLarens here, there's no Yoey, Tweezer stepping in for him. I haven't fully registered exactly who's missing, but I imagine it might be holiday related as a question there. No Bursey, of course. No KB, who I believe we had last week. No Galloway. Oh, it got pretty close up front here, but not close enough for Scornsy to make the move. The pressure is definitely on Dace though. He's got 2 more laps to defend this for a second place of the season. There is Nicky, he'll be out of the way for sure, he's ghosted anyway. 2 tenths, again the gap between a battle after turn 1 and 2. I ended up trying some alternate lines here just to show that he's there. Wants to get in the head of Dusty, but Dusty's a cool driver. He won't let any of that affect him too much, I wouldn't imagine. A bit more battery charge available to Sharia here, so if he can sneak a look at A-Dub, there may be something to play with in that regard. Lots of drivers having gained 4 positions here, but none of them with the 5 that VTEC has. Here comes a move. A-Dub is down the inside. Oh, from Sharia's perspective, you can see some contact, and he sneaks through on Dusty, who will not be impressed. He has his nose down the inside though, and might maintain 5th place. Oh, into the chicane side by side is not something you usually want to do. Dusty on a kind of an awkward line, but manages to make it happen around the outside. Does he have DRS? Yes, he does. Sharia probably lost his opportunity there. It's the last lap now. He's going to blast his battery down towards turn 1. And a lunge would be quite audacious. Clatters across the curb, and that's probably going to see him losing a bit of time. It's 3/10 between 2nd and 3rd. Ryan does look safe at this point. Final DRS opportunity here for Scornsey. I don't think this is going to be enough though. Dace, having weathered quite a storm from Scornsey over the race, did sort of succumb midway, but then Scornsey gave it right back to him. And this is a wonderful drive by Dace, I have to say. Oh my god, I have cursed the man. He has just lost out on the podium by about 4 corners in terms of penalties. Ellie called it. She asked to have a look at the penalties, at the warnings earlier. That was of Ryan Rod's, but Dace bottles it, and Will would be proud. If only Will was here to see that. Scavney comes across the line in 4th. I think it was Smith Pell with the fastest lap at the death there, having pitted, I imagine, for softs. Let's have a quick check. Yeah, of course. Wow. Whew, no safety cars that race. That won't really be pleasing for Edgar, who had the pace to run with the top 3, but unfortunately lost the rear at one point in turn 3. Ends up down in P8. A-Dub with a fighting P5. I talked to him prior to the race and suggested P5 might be a good aim for him, and he nails that perfectly. the chat is blowing up about Dace's misfortune there. I feel for the man. A-Dub there with in-game driver of the day. I'll have to check if that is correct. I should have monitored that. It may be him or it may be VTEC. We'll have a look. So there is GSR Ryan Rods. It's a GSR 1-2. It's a Ferrari 1-2. And I imagine they're now Championship 1 and 2, because neither P4 nor P2 prior to the round finished the race, that being Lanzi from P4 and Lightwork from P2. So we'll skip the champagne there and look to the order. Dace, after all that, ends up 3rd, which is still a podium, nothing to be scoffed at there. Scavney is up to 4th place. A-Dub there gained 2 positions, so it won't be driver of the day for him, I wouldn't imagine. I think it will be VTEC up 5. There's Dusty, Sharia, Edgar, Kalirub and VTEC in the top 10. Fastest lap and 11th for Smith Pell, first of the lapped runners. Knuckles and Tweezer on the same lap as him. Nicky 3 laps down. Lanzi and Lightwork the retirements. So just to double check that, it would seem that VTEC gained the most positions, and he definitely set a lap in qualifying, so that will be a point for him as well. A point will have gone to the pole position here for Lightwork. So gets at least something out of this weekend. And what a race. What a race. Another last second change for a podium position. Heartbreaking. But you know, these things happen. We'll probably interview these top 3 and get a bit of an insight into how that battle went for them. So give me a second here and I will invite them to the party. Alright, well while we wait for the top 3 to potentially join here for interviews, which I don't believe we had last week. Oh. Hey Keza, I was going to do podium interviews for a broadcast here, so...
Oh, you're live?
Yeah. Give it a couple of minutes and we'll have a chat. Hey Dace.
I was about to say all the holy things.
You there, Dace? Alright.
What's up, Jacko?
Hey. Quick check on everyone. Ryan, Squansey, you in?
Yo.
Alright. Well, that was quite the eventful race for you guys. We'll start with Ryan. 3rd win of the season. That's now more than anyone else and quite clear in the championship lead despite missing 1 race. So a very impressive 6 races from you. And this one, I think we saw 2 at least very sideways moments. So what was happening there? A bit of loss of concentration going for the fastest lap, or maybe tyre heat? What happened there?
No, just like a little mistake in the setup. It was so oversteery in the turn 3. Had to be so careful.
Okay, so turn 3, the issue for you there. I think we saw Edgar completely lose it at the same turn around midway. So interesting that that's affecting some of you guys. What about the battle happening behind you? Were you sort of aware that if you could get out of the DRS opportunity for Dace, that would be helping your teammate, or what was the thoughts there?
Yes, of course. Once upon, I had that like little half spin and got Dace into my DRS. I was like, man, that's unfortunate. Like Squingy's gonna have a really hard time now. So yeah, like we got lucky. Yes, he's got that pen, but if he didn't get the podium, like the 1-2, it was definitely on me.
Okay, and what about the launch off the start? We saw both of you pass the pole sitter immediately and sort of escape that hell that happened behind you. So what did you make of that? Was it just a great start by you? Was it perhaps lots of traction by him that you could see, or what happened there?
I think it was a relatively decent start for me, but he definitely had a horrible start because everyone was getting like near him or even past him. So I don't know. That pile up in the first lap, really unexpected.
Yeah, and of course huge to avoid it, and that brings you and your team into sort of a great advantage at this stage in the championship, having been almost halfway in the season. So do you think that that's going to be a championship fight straight between the two of you, or maybe you still expect sort of a light work Landsy Dace challenge?
I don't know. Anything could happen. Like light work could sneak up, same as Lancy. Just never sure until the end of the season.
Alright, well, congratulations once again, Ryan. Most winning driver of the season currently, and equal second in all-time Coleslaw Cup race wins already. So, wonderful job.
Cool, thank you.
Moving on to the second Ferrari driver, it's Scornsy, of course, coming off a victory last week. Looking to have an improvement since that sort of middle of the season so far lull. And I think, what a battle, a race-long battle with Dace. And possibly frustration a bit there after the slight mistake, having finally passed Dace, putting you back behind him. But what were your thoughts about that battle? And certainly the respect between you two looked pretty amazing to just have the right amount of space through turns 1, 2, 3 sort of area a couple of times.
Yeah, no, it was a great battle, very good battle with Dace. I think that might have been probably the longest battle I've had with him. I think I could be
We've
very
had some
wrong.
good ones. We've had some good ones before, yeah.
But yeah,
Not 30
definitely.
laps though.
Definitely a good battle with him. It was more of a cat and mouse kind of battle, but man, yeah, once I got past him and I didn't know if he was like staying behind me on purpose or whatever, but I was also trying to harvest a little bit of ERS. It was a little tough, just obviously he was pushing a little bit and he just outright had more pace, so it was a little difficult to regain the ERS. And then from there, yeah, once I made the mistake, I was lucky enough to have caught it twice. Actually, I made two mistakes where I had to catch the car, and yeah, I don't know how I did that, but just wasn't feeling comfortable with the setup.
Yeah, we saw those sort of oversteering moments. I think it was turn 1 and also the long sweeping left at turn 10 that you got sideways. And so both Ferrari struggling with a bit of oversteer worries there, maybe a setup thing to look at.
Yeah, definitely gonna have to go back and review the data with the team and you know definitely make some changes to the setup for sure for next time that we come around here. We'll be much more ready, I think, once we look at the data.
Was there also something to look at in terms of setup for getting past Dace? Like, I don't know about straight line speed, but certainly like Dace was getting great traction out of the chicane. So might that also be something you look at?
Yeah, that was yeah, definitely. I felt like I was faster than him throughout most of the lap, and then especially in sector 2, I felt like, and then yeah, end of that final chicane, he was just gone. It didn't matter what I did. I could literally be 2/10 behind him, make up ground, and then right out of that chicane, he just launched, and I had nothing for him. So that was a bit frustrating for sure, but yeah, I mean it's all something to not really be disappointed or frustrated, but just kind of learn from it and definitely help me get ready for the next time that I race here. So massive congrats as well to Ryan on another victory. Ferrari won too, thanks to Dace, and yeah, one hell of a race from Dace as well.
Absolutely. And it would be remiss of us to say, or to miss out, that you have the strongest support in the form of Ellie in the chat. She knew you'd beat Dace. I don't know how, but she knew it. And yeah, it was great. It's great to see her engaged in the chat as well.
No, that's good. I wasn't sure she was gonna be tuning in, but yeah, always love having Ellie there cheering me on and whatnot, and always showing support. Hey man, gotta have fans, you know? Gotta have fans.
Absolutely. All right, we'll move on
no.
to Dace here in third place, second podium of the season. I think China was the other one with a very strong P2. So Dace, I guess kind of heartbreaking to lose it so late. But what a battle with Scornsy. Maybe you'd like to chip in with your perspective of that battle.
Yeah, that last warning, first of all, was very disappointing. I was just pushing so hard and oversteered over the line, and I wanted to cry. But yeah, that battle, I was basically having an anxiety attack for 32 laps, trying not to let him pass. I kind of knew he had the pace in sector 2. 1 was kind of back and forth, but I knew if I nailed 3 and I got the launch out of the chicane that I could hold him off. So that's kind of what paid off the whole race until that last warning. But yeah, I mean, I thought I had the last hope of just kind of chilling when Ryan half spun, but he just went meet and right away.
And so, how long were you sitting on 2 warnings? Was it even really a worry, or did you just sort of surprise yourself with that last one?
I definitely surprised myself. I actually dialed it back a little bit. I wasn't pushing all out, trying to avoid it because I knew I had 2. One was just on brand new hards. They were horrendous. But yeah, I mean, I was basically just gaming up for the front straight the entire race, just trying to get the launch and stay ahead of him.
And what about your strategy? You were the first of the lead bunch to enter the pit lane and go to the hards. Was that an attempted? Well, it wasn't really an undercut, but it was sort of like you knew there was a risk, right, that you'd be overcut, but you're going to have to make that move, and you did successfully make the move on Scornsy. Quite a move it was. Yeah. So, what were your thoughts around that sort of strategy?
That move was ballsy. I scared myself a little bit with that, but I knew I had to do something coming out of the pits before he got his tires warmed up. So I was, if I didn't do it there, I was probably going to send it somewhere else before his tires were up to 10.
Fair enough. Well, despite the last second loss of second place there, it's still a podium, still a great result, second best of the season. And now we've got 2 weeks
Wish
off.
I could have split the Ferraris. They're kind of OP.
Yes, they're a very strong team. But we've got 2 weeks off before Baku is the next round in the new year. So how do you feel about Baku? Do you think you'll be strong there, have another opportunity at a 3rd podium of the season?
I think so. I think the Midwest Baku race, it's really tough with the first few laps if you don't really nail and stay with the front group in the first few laps, and you're kind of done for, especially when you're dealing with these 2 aliens that I'm racing against at the front. So if I can get a good start and a good few laps, then I think, I can challenge these guys.
Alright, well, we'll look forward to seeing that, and we'll look forward to seeing all of you guys having a good crack at it in that race. There are a couple of weeks off though, so everyone here, I hope, will have a fantastic festive season and an enjoyable New Year celebration. And until then, I've been Jacko. This has been the Coleslaw Cup. I'll see you then.
Happy holidays, people.